I've always loved extremely hard gaming challenges. Whether it's simply a hard game or a self-inflicted challenge like a Pokemon Nuzlocke, I can never seem to get enough of this stuff. And you know what else I can't seem to get enough of? Yeah, I basically eat, sleep, and breathe Deltarune at this point, so it was only natural for me to try and find an extremely hard challenge for this game. So I turned to the modding scene to find a brutal and tough Deltarune mod to truly put me to the test. But little did I know, I would find a mod more brutal than I could ever imagine in the absolute depths of Game Banana's modding page. A mod so hidden and obscure, I've never seen another soul even mention it, let alone attempt this challenge. Okay, well, admittedly it was pretty easy to find, but hey, I haven't seen anybody else ever mention it. This mod is simply called Deltarune but Kris is Bleeding, and at first it honestly just looked like a skin mod where Kris is, well, bleeding. But it's a lot more than just that. So, let me introduce you to this mod and the rules of this challenge. In this mod, Kris has suffered severe damage from the fall into the Dark World, and now starts to rapidly bleed out during battles. Whenever the enemy is attacking, Kris's HP will go down rapidly until the attack is over. Moving the soul around will also greatly increase the rate at which Kris's HP decreases as well. However, grazing bullets, aka being close to them without actually getting hit, will slightly heal Kris during attacks, and for most fights this is the only way to stay alive. The most important change of all though is that if Kris goes down, you instantly die. Normally in Deltarune, if Kris's HP reaches 0, they just get downed, and you can still control the other members of your party who are still up. Not here though, if you bleed out during battle, it's game over. Weirdly enough, I didn't think this challenge would be too hard at all at first. I've conquered some of the toughest Deltarune battles out there. From Giga Spamton to Snowgrave Noel, I've definitely been through the ringer with tough fights. So surely I wouldn't have that much trouble with this challenge, right? Little did I know that I was in for an extremely brutal awakening. But you wanna know what's even more brutal? The fact that only 10% of you are subscribed. So subscribe, and don't be a part of the lame other 90%, alright? But now that you're officially a part of the Cool Kids Club, it's time for me to undergo my hardest Deltarune challenge yet. So we start out on the cliffs, and our very first obstacle is of course overworld bullets. Luckily for us, our health only drains in actual battles, so these parts of the game are completely unaffected. Wow, surely this challenge will be a piece of cake with no foreseeable insanely hard roadblock right at the beginning. Ow, okay, that's really bad. Okay, yeah, this is gonna take a while. This is gonna be a little bit rough. Okay, that sucks, but oh well. Man, I don't know how you get past Lancer here. This is so, like, brutally difficult. Maybe... Man, the Dark Candy isn't enough to get us through. This might take us a few tries here. I don't know how to get past Lancer. Like, it seems basically impossible. Okay, there we go. We actually survived that. Okay, so this is Lancer. The very first fight and an insanely hard roadblock right at the very beginning. You see, Lancer has the same attacks in the same order every time you fight him, just like all the other bosses. The first attack is him moving across the screen, and the next one is the same thing, except he throws some spades at you afterwards. Surviving the first attack is easy enough. Ideally, we want him to attack far enough away from our soul's starting position so we don't have to move and bleed out even more, but also for him to still drive close enough for us to graze him and heal a little bit. Even though there isn't much to graze here, it's a short attack, so we can reliably come out of this with 50 to 55 HP left. The second attack, though, is where things get rough. Luckily, the attack isn't random besides who Lancer targets. He will always drive right through the middle and will always throw spades right at your soul. But even after so many attempts, I just couldn't make it past this attack. Even with moving as little as possible and grazing everything I could by going on the outside of the spades, we just don't have enough HP. Unfortunately, we don't really have many options here either, since it's the very start of the game. I reset to get this dark candy at the beginning, but this is the only item you can get before this point, and it doesn't help at all. Sure, it does let you get past the second attack, but with what little HP we have left, there's absolutely no hope of getting past the third one. Healing is completely out of the question for now. So what do we do? We aren't even able to make it past Lancer's second attack. Is the challenge really over on the first real obstacle? No, it can't end just yet. Sure, we can't get past Lancer's second attack, but what if we don't have to? By looking at some speedruns, I found it is possible to finish this fight before the third attack even starts. You need 3 perfect attacks in order to do so, but it is possible. But that still doesn't answer how we can survive the second attack, so how are we going to do it? Well, I retried this fight over and over and over again until finally, with all the knowledge acquired in my previous attempts, I was able to think of a strategy that might just work. On our turns, we do nothing but attack and only hit perfect strikes. Anything less and we're doomed. On Lancer's first attack, we simply try to graze Lancer while moving as little as possible. For Lancer's second attack, we need him to target Susie. If he does, then we can stand still and graze for just a little bit to minimize Kris's damage while Susie tanks the actual hit. After that, if we move straight up and dodge the bullets at the top of the screen, then we should be able to graze every single spade with as little movement as possible. And after countless attempts with this strategy, I had finally done it. I survived the impossible second attack, with not even a single HP to spare. Now, all that was left was to hit that final critical hit. And with that, we finally won. The very first battle in the entire game. Yeah, Lancer was pretty tough, and we were barely able to get out of that one alive, but luckily it should actually be smooth sailing now for a little bit. Now we have Rouse in our party, and he's gonna be much more useful than Susie was, not only because he can heal us, but more importantly because we can actually control him and have a lot more options in battles. Our next fight would normally be the dummy, but luckily we can simply just skip it entirely with the right dialogue choice. Normally, I would try and fight it for the sake of it, but after Lancer, I'm taking every mercy I can get. But with that, we're finally out of Castletown and can move on to the Field of Hopes and Dreams. Now we're onto the field, and first I immediately run past and dodge this Rudin fight altogether, wanting to take as few risks as possible. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to slip past this second Rudin though, but they were a breeze with a total of 4 critical hits, finishing them off pretty quickly. I guess this is also a good time to mention that during this run, I exclusively fought every enemy with violence, since at the time I was under the impression that this was the quickest way to go about things, but in reality, sparing during certain fights is actually faster than just fighting. Either way, it really didn't make a difference in my run, but I thought I should clarify this now. Moving onwards though, we can't afford to pass anything up, so I grab everything we find along the way. We get a few more dark candies for healing, as well as the broken cake, which could save us later on when we fix it and turn it into the top cake for a full party heal. Things only got easier from here, since Hathies start appearing in battles and help us a ton. If Hathies are accompanied by another enemy in battle, then they will do this circular rotating heart attack. Normally, this just shrinks the area you can move around to dodge the other attacks, but for us it's free healing since we can graze every heart rotating by us. With that being said, I hope it isn't a surprise when I say that Lancer's triple Hathi combo is still the easiest fight in the game. Along the way, we also grab the white ribbon and give it to Kris for some extra defense, which is nice, but won't matter too much in the long run. In order to survive a lot of fights, you have to basically no-hit them, since if you do get hit, then you get put into invincibility frames and are unable to graze anything while they're active. Continuing on, we do get Susie back in our party, and did I say that Hathies were the easiest fight in the game? There's also Sham's shop, which is extremely useful to get a little bit of a damage upgrade for Kris, but more importantly because now we can get all the healing items we will ever need by grinding if it ever comes to that. For now, I bought the spooky sword, a dark burger, sold the wood blade, and moved on. Now we've reached this checkerboard area, and I was a little bit afraid of these pawn men chasing after us. However, with a little bit of precise movement, we are able to skip them completely and go to the next room before they can even manage to catch us. This means that our next fight is against K Round, definitely one of the harder fights in this game, but nothing as crazy as Lancer. We do have to spare him since there is no way to beat him otherwise, so we simply just have to bow over and over again. At first I was pretty worried because I thought you had to do a deep bow with both Kris and Ralse every time to get the crown off, which would be a huge problem since we do need one of them to heal Kris every turn, and we can't exactly force Susie to do it either. My worries were put to rest though, since you can get past the fight just fine bowing only with Kris. It does take a little bit longer, but it's not like we have any other choice anyway. Most of K Round's attacks are pretty easy to graze though, which makes this fight not too bad in terms of difficulty. The challenge mostly comes from having to get a little too close to K Round in order to graze sometimes, as well as this last attack where you have to move over to the bullets in order to graze and stay alive. If you just try and wait for these projectiles to come to you in the center, you're probably just gonna die. But with K Round defeated and us being about halfway done with this game, I was feeling pretty confident going into the forest despite Susie leaving the party. The field of hopes and dreams was such a breeze that I was overcome with confidence, but the wind would soon be knocked right out of me. So we're officially at the midpoint of our quest, and I'm not gonna lie, the forest didn't pose many problems for the most part. There are a few new enemies here, but the only ones that caused me a few deaths were the rabbits, because while they aren't super hard, they have some attacks which don't have much graze potential, so if you mess up a little bit, it will end in your doom. Not much happened in the forest until we came across this bake sale. It sells Choco Diamonds, Hearts Donuts, and you can also get one Lancer cookie before Susie and Lancer run off. I honestly didn't remember much about these healing items, but based on the description, I got the idea that they were kinda like the teas in Chapter 2, where certain party members would heal more from certain ones. Since this could really help us out in the future, I took one of each to experiment with in future battles and moved on to Malleus. Malleus is a hammer dude that can fix anything. Unfortunately, he can't fix our whole blood loss situation, but hey, he can turn the broken cake into the top cake for a full heal, so good enough. After this, there really wasn't much left of the forest. A lot of the forest is dodging overworld bullets, which again, doesn't affect us at all. So I thought that maybe for the first time in this challenge, we'd actually be able to get past an area without really any trouble at all. But man was I wrong, because unfortunately for us, our little blue friend from earlier wants revenge from the start of this challenge. That's right, we aren't quite done with Lancer just yet, and this time he brought Susie along with him. Ironically enough though, it's actually Susie that poses the real threat this time. Lancer is honestly pretty easy, since when he attacks by himself, it's really easy to graze and stay alive. We can also attack him to get the fight over quick, since attacking Susie won't do much damage. Every attack involving Susie is a nightmare though. The very first attack is already pretty hard. She jumps on Lancer and throws a barrage of axes at you, similar to Lancer's attack that gave us so much trouble in the first part of this challenge. This attack isn't nearly as hard to survive as that one since it doesn't last as long, but you can still only survive with just a tiny bit of HP left by grazing the axes. Now Kris is left at 20 HP, and we're not only going to need to heal them back to almost full HP, but we're also going to need to do so constantly throughout this fight as well. Fortunately, we actually have an insanely powerful new item at our disposal, and a lot of it. Remember that bake sale from earlier? Well, I experimented with the cookies they sold during my time in the forest, and realized that one of these cookies in particular is super strong in this challenge. None other than the Choco Diamond. Yep, out of all the cookies, the Choco Diamond is able to heal Kris specifically for 80 HP, which is basically a full heal in most situations, with Kris's max HP only being 90. Not only is the Choco Diamond crazy good healing, but the people at the bake sale never run out of them, and it only costs 40 Dark Dollars, meaning that we can easily grind these Bloxers in the room next to the bake sale to easily fill up our inventory. With the power of a full inventory of Choco Diamonds on our side now, Ralsei can fully heal Kris each turn while Kris does the attacking. Now, we only really have to be worried about attacks that can kill Kris from full HP. After Susie's axe attack, there's this very easy Lancer attack which we can graze a lot and easily survive. However, this is where we now see the hardest attack of this whole fight. Another Susie axe attack. This time, it's just Susie throwing slow-moving axes at us, and this is deadly for quite a few reasons. For one, the attack lasts for a while, and with our HP constantly draining, this isn't exactly a good thing. Susie also only throws a few large projectiles instead of a lot of smaller ones, meaning we can't really graze to heal much either. To put the icing on the cake, the axes also have weird hitboxes compared to other bullets, making it hard to graze them without getting hit. All of this combined makes for an extremely challenging attack in this challenge. With enough careful and precise dodging, we were able to get through it though. The only issue is that we have to do it twice. These three attacks all repeat in the same order, and since we're only attacking with Kris, we'll only be able to end the fight after 6 whole turns, meaning we'll have to get through each attack twice. This is already annoying, but you want to know what's even more annoying? The fact that when you lose, Susie and Lancer don't technically kill you. When you lose in this fight, you don't actually see the game over screen, and are instead just kicked back to your last save point outside the fight. Why this matters is because normally when you respawn at your save point after a game over, all your items will be restored back to how they were when you saved. In this case though, whatever items you use are gone even after losing the fight. Luckily, we can fully restart the game to negate this effect entirely, but the fact that we have to close and fully reboot the game so often is just another layer of annoyance in this fight. Yeah, suffice to say that this fight took me a while, but with enough perseverance and resets, I was finally able to make it through all 6 attacks and finish this fight for good. So much for the forest being a walk in the park, huh? With the final battle of the forest being dealt with, we can finally move on to the final area of the game. Here we are, the final frontier, the Card Castle. It starts off incredibly easy, with the first fight being Susie against Lancer. Since Kris isn't in this fight at all, we don't actually have to worry about our HP constantly going down or anything. And with this being a scripted fight, it's literally impossible for us to lose. After this fight, we get Susie in our party for real this time, meaning we can actually decide what she does in battle. Now, I know a lot of people are probably wondering about the secret boss, so after the elevator, we can officially do the Jevil fight, and this is impossible. Yeah, I gave this the good old college try, but I'll put it bluntly, this isn't even remotely possible. The first attack seems like it would have a lot of stuff to graze, but the issue is that it goes on for ages. I tried for over a half hour straight, and I was only able to get past the first attack 2 times with less than 5 HP. Now you might be thinking that because of this fight is possible but just insanely hard. The thing about this first attack though is that it's really random. Jevil will appear in different spots each time to shoot the bullets, meaning that sometimes you can get really unlucky patterns that are basically impossible to survive, or if you get really lucky, you can just barely survive with 1 to 5 HP. I tried a ton of methods to make this consistent despite the RNG, but I was never able to find a method that reliably worked. Oh, and I could never make it past the second attack at all. Maybe this is possible, but it would require a ton of luck and a ton of time to get past, and I haven't even tried anything past the second attack. If any of you want to attempt this yourselves, I'll leave the mod in the description so you can try it out. Just don't expect it to be easy. The good thing about this though is that Jevil isn't even remotely required to beat Chapter 1, so we can just ignore him entirely. While it would be nice to have the Devil's Knife for the future, it isn't really a possibility for us at all. After grinding back up to a full inventory of Choco Diamonds though, we're ready to take on the castle. The castle itself isn't really too much of an issue. There are slightly harder versions of starter enemies like Rudins and Hathies, but they don't pose too much of a real threat. Now we have K-Round once again, and this fight goes pretty similarly to the first time around, with the only real difference being that we can actually control Susie this time. The attacks are essentially exactly the same as the first time, so it was pretty easy, and I won't bother repeating myself since it's literally just an easier version of when we fought him the first time. With K-Round defeated for good now, it's time to take on our final foe, the Chaos King. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree because the king puts up just as much of a fight as his son did. While King doesn't have an attack that's as hard as Lancer's nearly impossible one, he has a lot more attacks we have to go through, and every single one of them are pretty challenging to make it out of in one piece. These attacks can be pretty rough though. If we get hit a single time, it's game over. We do have a few things going for us here though. For one, Susie can learn Red Buster after talking to the king. It costs 10 more TP and requires Kris and Susie's action for the turn, but the damage more than makes up for it. Another cool thing about it is that you don't have to talk with Susie every run to have access to Red Buster. After you've done it once, she'll have it from the get-go on every run after that. In addition, we also have a full inventory of Choco Diamonds to help us keep going in this fight. The strategy here is to end the fight as quick as possible. Constantly attack or red buster with Kris and Susie, while Rouse keeps healing Kris with Choco Diamonds every turn to keep us alive. So with the strategy laid out, let's do this. Since most attacks here are pretty hard, I'm going to explain them one by one. The first attack is relatively easy. It's actually the same as one of Lancer's attacks, but with more spades, so it's actually easier to graze more bullets and stay alive. For his next attack, the king moves our battle box up and down with a line of spades going across. Since moving hurts us more, we need to minimize our movement by only moving left and right to survive, since the battle box will naturally push us up and down. We also have to graze 2 spades on our way up and down. The most consistent way I found to do this is starting out close to a spade on the right, and then moving to the left in order to graze the other one while we're in between both of them. It took a while to find the solution for this one, but if you do it all correctly, you can consistently survive this attack. This next one seems like it would be very easy given how much you can graze, but it ends up being a bit hard because of its long duration. And I think that you can see a pattern in what makes an attack hard in this challenge. This one is pretty self-explanatory though. Try to keep your movements minimal and position yourself so the line of bullets graze past you on their way across the screen. This attack has the battle box moving all across the screen like one of those bouncing DVD logos, and it's one of the only attacks in this entire challenge where we have to move around a lot in order to live. Again, this one is pretty self-explanatory. You just have to stay near the edge of the battle box's spikes without actually getting hit. While this is simple, it's a lot tougher than it sounds because of the battle box's erratic movement, and you have to thread the needle between being close enough to the spikes to graze them and stay alive without getting hit and instantly dying. Yeah, this happened a lot. There's a slightly harder version of this attack up next, but we're able to use the same strategy again just fine. Now we have this attack, where once again the battle box has spikes on the sides, and we have to try and stay close to the spikes without getting hit. This is a pretty similar attack to the bouncing DVD one, except a little easier since we don't have to move as much and the movement of the battle box isn't very erratic at all. We can err a little more on the side of caution here as well, since the battle box does stop now and then and lets us heal a lot for free, and somehow I still managed to die a ton on this one as well. With that done though, all that's left are some harder versions of previous attacks that we can use the same strategies for. Normally, King does do this insanely hard final attack, which would normally pose a huge problem for us, but with enough critical hits and red busters, we can finish the fight before he even gets the chance to use it. And so, with the king on his last bit of HP, I went for a final all-out attack with what TP I had left. And after an insane amount of attempts to finally make it to this point, we were finally able to beat the king. And with the king defeated, that means that we've finally done it. After so many attempts, so many deaths, so many Choco Diamonds, and a whole lot of determination, we can finally close the Dark Fountain, and prove that despite all the challenges along the way, we were able to come out victorious. And so with that, Chapter 1 is complete. Kris is back on the Light World and is even fully healed of their wounds after all that time injured in the Dark World. But if they were to fall again, would they suffer the same injuries? Hey guys, thank you all so much for watching this video. This is definitely my longest video by far, and it took a lot of work, so I really hope you enjoyed it. And if this video does well enough, I might even play through Chapter 2 with the same challenge, so give it a like and leave a comment if you want a follow-up video. I also make a lot of Deltarune content on this channel, and since you obviously like Deltarune if you've made it here, then why not subscribe? There's also a Patreon for those that want to support the channel even more. There are cool perks, and it really helps me keep making cool content like this, so give it a look in the description. With all that being said though, thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you all have a great day.